speaking Retell Lecture method. Let's look at a good high-scoring method in detail, step by step, how to form a response and deliver a good response for Retell Lecture questions. Just a refresher, this is what the screen looks like. The image on the left, something related to the lecture. On the right, you will have the lecture playing in a box, and at the bottom, you will have the box for the recorder that will record your response. The audio will be up to 90 seconds, then a 10 seconds gap for you to compose your response, and then another 40 seconds to record your response. Quite simple. Yeah. Let's look at the steps in the method that we recommend. First of all, look at the image and try to understand the theme. Now, before the audio starts playing, you'll have a few seconds before the lecture starts playing. So quickly look at the image and in your mind, try to guess what the theme is about. What's the advantage of this? The advantage is that it puts you in a proactive frame of mind to attentively listen to and make sense of what you will hear. So for example, if you already think that what you're going to hear is about education, then there's a good chance you will grasp the points better rather than not having any clue what the upcoming audio is about. So as I said, be alert and ready to take notes. You should be in that position because taking notes is essential. Then when the audio starts, visualize in your mind, take notes on your scratch pad and try to understand key points. And these things, they should happen together. It's all a way for you to understand what the lecture is about. So form a picture in your mind, note down the key information in your notes, and then try to understand what the speaker is talking about. Then your goal should be to get the overall idea of what the lecture is about, because that will help you with the introduction. And then your goal should be to get 2-3 relevant key points from the lecture, and then some kind of a conclusion or some kind of another overarching point from the lecture. And then you will have 10 seconds in which all that you've understood in some kind of a structure that you already have in mind and that you've practiced, you will put it together. Just like we have for describe images, there is a session where we talk about templates, and we also talk about a few templates that you can use for Retell Lecture. And there we discuss the kind of formats that you should use. So you can refer to those lectures. And then once you're ready, once you hear the tone that indicates that the microphone has opened up, you should start speaking. And when you speak, be confident and speak clearly. And as soon as you're done with your response, click on the next button and go to the next question. Don't keep waiting. Simple, isn't it? Now, to understand this with the help of an example, this is a question. I'll play the lecture for you. Try to attempt it. I'll give you a minute overall. And then in the next slides, we will dissect this and try to understand this in a step-by-step manner.
My mother explained that the Green Lady is actually the Statue of Liberty and that she was waving immigrants in. Now, the part of her explanation that really messed with my young head was the fact that, according to Ma, long before us, the Green Lady was actually brown like me, and that she changed colors over the years. Now, much like America. Now, the part that really is intriguing about this is that when she changed colors, she made me think about myself. Now, it all made sense to me because as a first-generation American, I was surrounded by immigrants. In fact, within my immediate social circle of the people who support me, who enrich my life, at least 2 are foreign-born. My life as a U.S. citizen is in many ways shaped by newcomers, and chances are, so is yours. There are more than 40 million immigrants in the USA. According to census data, a quarter of the nation's children have at least one foreign-born parent.
Try to form a response now. Let's look at the sample response. The speaker talks about immigration and immigrants in America. According to the speaker, the Statue of Liberty was built to welcome immigrants to the USA. It was initially brown in color, but changed color to green over the years. This is parallel to how America has changed over the years. The speaker acknowledges the presence of immigrants in America and how almost 25% of the children have one parent who was born overseas. All right, so now let's look at the steps. First, as I said earlier when we were looking at the steps, before the lecture starts playing, your first task should be to look at the image and try to guess what this is about. So this is a famous picture, and I'm sure most of you, almost everybody, will be able to tell that this is Statue of Liberty. And you can further extrapolate this to say the lecture is probably going to be about freedom, democracy, about America. Or if you know the background of Statue of Liberty, you might even think that there's something to do about welcoming people to America, migration, immigrants, etc. So this overall gives you some idea of what you can expect to hear in the lecture. Now, in the next slide, you have to be alert and ready to take notes. You put yourself in that position before the audio starts playing. When the audio starts playing, you have to visualize, take notes, understand key points. So if
My mother
this is the
explained
audio,
that the green lady is actually the Statue of Liberty and that she was waving immigrants in. Now, the part of her explanation that really messed with my young head was the fact that, according to mine, long before us, the green lady was actually brown like me, and that she changed colors over the years. Now, much like America, now the part that really is intriguing about this is that when she changed colors, she made me think about myself. Now, that made sense to me because as a first generation American, I was surrounded by immigrants. In fact, within my immediate social circle of the people who support me, who enrich my life, at least.
we'll stop it there. But as you can guess, if you are listening to this lecture, then when you visualize, the speaker is constantly talking about mentioning words related to migration, immigrants, welcoming people to America. So the overall theme is something to do with migration, immigrants. That should be in your notes. And when you're visualizing, you can picture something like people entering America. You can have a picture of a passport, the queue at the immigration, those kind of things to help you remember what you're listening. Okay, the idea is to put some visual clues in your mind in the form of some images that makes it easier for you to remember what it's about. So you have some notes, you have a few images, some imagery in your mind. And along with that, of course, you've been listening, so you've remembered and understood the key points. Now, the next goal, prepare introduction, 2-3 key points, and a conclusion. So introduction, as I said, to understand what the theme is about, you have to look for what the speaker is talking about again and again. Now, he might not repeat the same word again and again. So he's not saying immigrant, 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 or immigration, immigration, immigration again and again. But in different ways, he's referring to immigration, like the color of brown people, Statue of Liberty welcoming people to America, surrounded by people from other cultures, countries, immigrants. So all of that points to the theme of immigration, and that tells you that the lecture is about immigration and immigrants in America. So that's the first thing. You have to understand the theme, then a few points. So he tells what the Statue of Liberty is about. That's one point. Then how changing color is parallel to how America has changed over the years. And then, as I said, we have to make a conclusion. If you listen to some lectures, you will come across templates which say, recommend that we say something like in conclusion. But you don't always have to say conclusion to make a conclusion. It can be something that you understood overall from the lecture. As in this case, the speaker acknowledges the presence of immigrants in America and how almost 25% of children. So he's made an overall point about the state of immigrants and about immigration in America. So that's also a conclusion, okay? But sometimes if you're not able to, let's say, get a point which stands out like that as an overall explanation, then you can insert a specific statement which sounds like a conclusion. Like in conclusion, the speaker explains all about immigrants and how they started coming to America, right? So that's also a conclusion. As we talked about in Describe Image, this is not a test of your critical skills. It's important to get the content correct because that's the first thing that you are scored on. So you should be able to identify the theme correctly. More or less, you should be able to pick the key points correctly. But it's fine. You don't have to dissect it at a master's level. So that's fine. because overall this is a test of speaking. More or less get the points correct and then focus on your delivery, your pronunciation, and your fluency. Next, once you have understood those points, fill them in a predetermined structure. So in this case, as you can see, the predetermined structure, I know in the structure that I have in mind, I'll always start about the speaker talks about, or you can say the lecturer talks about. The second sentence that I say will always be according to the speaker, and then I'll put in the first point. And in the last statement, I will always say the speaker acknowledges, or some of you can say in conclusion or to conclude. So there are different ways you can do this, and it's usually helpful to have more than one structure in mind so that you can use one for one question, you can use the other one for another question. I usually recommend my students not repeat the same template again and again, okay? If you can, because though there's no certainty, but it's possible that because it's artificial intelligence and an algorithm that's judging you, so if it's possible that it can sense repetition from one question to another. And you don't want to give the impression that you've just memorized some templates and you're putting points in that. And you can avoid that by using different templates for different questions. And we shouldn't even say template. It's more important to have the structure. And the structure is introduction, whichever template you use for that to begin with, then the key points, and then finally a conclusion. And the conclusion in one template, you can say the speaker acknowledges. In other template, you can say to conclude. So that way you can have multiple options ready before you go to the exam. Once you have done all of that, then as soon as the microphone opens up, you should be able to speak confidently and clearly and deliver your response. That's it. And when you have done that, just click on the next button and go to the next question. 7 steps, right from what you should do before the lecture starts, then a few steps which cover what you should do when the lecture is playing, and then finally a few steps which tell you what you should do after the lecture has ended. Follow these, and I'm certain you will get a good score in this question type.